Copilot for Finance. My name is Haitham Haid, and I'll be your moderator today. We are broadcasting this session through Teams Town Hall. This session is being recorded on behalf of the Microsoft Corporation. Presenting for us today, we have Russell Hercules, Principal Program Manager, Wayne Wilson, Principal Program Manager, James Edwards, Senior Engineering Manager, Marek Królewski, Principal Program Manager, and myself. Russell, over to you to get us started.
Thank you, Haitham. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Today, we've got a packed agenda. We're going to cover a brief introduction into Copilot for Finance. We're going to jump right into a deep dive demo across 3 scenarios, including one upcoming feature to be shipped on our GA timeframe. We'll also spend some time on our roadmap, and we have one of our engineering leads made available to go over our architecture. And then Haitham will wrap up the session with a review on the requirements and limitations in public preview and GA, key takeaways, resources, and question and answer. So with that, we'll get started. So before we get into what Copilot for Finance is about, I think it's important for us to take a step back to understand the Copilot ecosystem at Microsoft. We start with Microsoft Copilot at the base. Microsoft Copilot is your everyday AI companion. It brings chat interfaces and large language models together with information from the internet so that you can ask questions in natural language to help navigate tasks. That's led us to the creation of Copilot for M365. Copilot for M365 is your AI companion for work. It brings your work data from the Microsoft Graph into cutting-edge large language models that we find in Microsoft Copilot. That means pulling from your documents, emails, calendars, chats, meetings, contacts, etc., all with enterprise-grade data protection, security that you've come to expect from Microsoft, and customization capabilities to personalize your Copilot experiences for your own organization with Microsoft Copilot Studio. Copilot for Microsoft 365 works alongside you, embedded in Microsoft 365 apps that you use on a daily basis. Now comes Copilot for Finance. We sit atop that architecture and we focus on finance professionals. Our goal is to bring in data from external ERP systems and provide a means for which you can access that data where you need it, when you need it, provide insights to allow you to make better decisions and to automate or speed up tasks that typically you would do manually. Copilot for Finance can assist professionals in 2 ways. One, we help to reduce spending and drive efficiency across operations by applying AI to manual labor-intensive financial processes like collections and contract negotiations and management and invoice capture. Second, Copilot for Finance helps professionals accelerate their impact by speeding time to financial insight. Next generation AI delivers proactive insights into outliers and reduces the time it takes to compile and analyze data with tailored workflows and recommended next best actions. Copilot for Finance works alongside you to minimize app switching and ensures that data is kept up to date across complex processes and teams. Data is integrated between your financial systems like your ERP, your SQL tables, data lakes, etc., M365 collaboration apps like Excel, Outlook, and Teams, meaning users can update data across platforms and eliminate the need to switch between applications regardless of where your financial data sits. As you see on this slide, we've had some success internally with Copilot for Finance. Most recently, Modern Finance, our finance organization, has been piloting our variants of our data reconciliation capabilities. And as you can see, the impact has been significant. Even in the early days, they're taking processes that previously used to take 1 to 2 hours down to 20 minutes. And across thousands of analysts, that savings is significant. We've also seen, even before the advent of Copilot for Finance, our sales organization see similar success, with upwards of 83% of sales professionals also touting the benefits of Copilots. So overall, we believe the strategy is heading in the right direction and serving the need of our customers. Some interesting quotes I want to share with you from our Modern Finance team include a couple of the following. We've had one user remark that AR reconciliation helped them to reduce manual plotting of invoices from the source data and saves an average of 20 minutes per account. This translated to an average savings of 22% in average handling time. And for them, this represents over 200 accounts a month. The savings are meaningful. We've also had one other quote that implies that they've been able to eliminate hours that the teams have been putting into setting up initial frameworks because it just works out of the box. Also adds more value from a report summary standpoint, which in a way has a scope to improve the quarterly audits and increase productivity. So next, we want to jump right into the product. Wayne and I are pleased to have the opportunity to demonstrate capabilities that we're shipping in GA. Two of the features are already out in public preview. I'll be focused on how we improve collections processes for coordinators who work in Microsoft Outlook, and Wayne will address capabilities related to data reconciliation and will provide an early look at our other new capabilities coming soon. Many companies manage collections through email communications. Customers contact them directly with financial inquiries, including requests for statements, overdue invoices, or payment disputes. Inboxes can quickly become difficult to manage, and switching between Outlook and their ERP can hinder productivity. However, we believe there's a better way. Copilot for Finance is definitely here to help. We're going to kick off this demo today with our collections coordinator receiving an email from one of their top customers, Sparrow Retail. With Copilot for Finance, we're going to observe how the collections coordinator is quickly going to gain context about the customer's needs. First, with the help of generative AI, we're able to summarize the contents of the email. Next, by having a native integration with D365 Finance, Copilot is able to identify Adele as a contact with an existing customer, Sparrow Retail. Drilling down further on Sparrow Retail, we're able to retrieve critical details regarding the customer, including their aging history, outstanding invoices, and related activities. In the email summary, we saw that Adele had indicated that one of the outstanding invoices was in dispute. Rather than having to make this update in D365, the collections coordinator is actually able to update it directly in Copilot for Finance, saving time. Now, with the context of the customer and the email summary at hand, we are able now to reply with full confidence to try to resolve the matter. What you'll see in a moment is with our email summary, we're able to trigger a reply using generative AI. And before we produce that reply, we're able to adjust not only the tone, but the length.
Nice.
Now, with the human in the middle, Copilot for Finance really allows us to make a couple of decisions here. One, we have the ability to either regenerate that reply, or we could have attached it directly into the body of the email and made an edit. So therefore, we've got the power to control the output before we hit send, and we can refine these requests. So in this case, I'm going to add it to the draft. Now, not only can I reply with the relevant context, but we can also drill a little bit further in and we can attach the missing invoice. For example, I can just add to draft. And with our invoice attached and our email response ready, we can go ahead and resolve this case. Now, what's good here is that we did not have to switch context to our ERP system to go grab these attachments or go make the requisite updates on the disputes. This all happened in the context of Copilot. Now, I'm going to take a moment to go slightly backwards in the order because I want to show you a couple things. One, first, I want to share with you how we go about installing the app. It's pretty straightforward. You want to go to your apps, you're going to hit add, and you're going to search for Copilot for Finance. and we should show up in your results. And you want to select the preview option because that's the one that be visible for you. And then instead of open, you'd see install. So that's the installation process. Now, from a sign-in perspective, what you want to do is once the app is installed, your first run experience will look like what I'm about to share with you now. So you're going to select your ERP. At launch, we support D365 Finance. We're in the process of widening that support for other ERP systems by GA. Once we select the ERP, our next process will be to select the environment. So once we select our environment, that's the last step, and then we're logged into the system. So thanks for your time. I'm going to hand over now to Wayne as he goes through our reconciliation capabilities and our variance analysis. Thank you.
So as Russell was just showing, he's now sent the information over to the customer. And the customer might be looking to say, well, let's look at our invoice history and see what we've actually shared. And so the customer then provides a list back to us to say, hey, here's a list of the invoices that we've paid. Can you see what's missing? We don't see anything as unpaid. And that would come through in your standard email, which the accounting team can then download and review. So I will just jump right into Excel. So this is the list that came from Adele. And it says these are the invoices that we've paid. Now, as you can see, there are many here. There are hundreds of invoices. Typically, what would have to happen is I would then now have to go through the process of comparing against the invoices that I have. And these are the invoices that we have within our application. But because of Copilot for Finance, this process can be made much more smooth and done much more efficiently. So to demonstrate how we install a Copilot for Finance, I decided to go through that process in the beginning here. So I'm going to go into an add-in and look for Copilot for Finance. And here it is. And I would click Add. And just like that, you can see Copilot for Finance is that quickly installed. And just like that, end users can quickly start using Copilot for Finance without having to wait for any extended time or having an admin engage in the process. So once installed, I then would now click Reconcile Data. And you see that it immediately identifies both worksheets that are within this workbook, the invoices by the account, as well as the customer invoices, which I had already downloaded from my ERP. It also detects the tables with the data within both worksheets automatically. I can go in and choose a different selection if there's more than one table present in either worksheet, but we're just going to go ahead with the two that are present here. I click Next. And Copilot begins now analyzing both worksheets to find where are the vectors for comparison. And you see that it comes out with 4 suggested vectors for looking across both worksheets. Now, I have a couple options. I can keep those, I can regenerate it to try another, or I could even dismiss it and create my own. And by creating my own, I could then just click Add Column, and you'll see there's 2 options here, mapping key and a monetary column. For Copilot for Finance to operate, it only requires 2, at least 1 mapping key and at least 1 monetary column. But obviously, the more vectors you have present inside there as part of the reconciliation, the better the output will be. So we'll go back and we're going to just choose the suggested vectors. So I'll keep these 4. I'll say keep it. And notice within, if I see a column that I don't necessarily agree or want to change, I do have the ability to go through and choose one of the different columns in each of the worksheets. So you can do that and customize it slightly differently than what's been provided or suggested. But for the sake of this demonstration, we will keep the 4 that it's done. I can also go ahead here and again, add another monetary column or mapping key by going through this step as well. And then click Next. And Copilot goes through the process of reconciling the data. And it quickly provides this output, which is a reconciliation report. Now, the reconciliation report includes 3 different sections. One is the matched transactions. You'll see there's 356 items that were matched automatically. It's automatically collapsed because that's usually not where most of the focus wants to be, but we can quickly uncollapse it and display all the transactions. But then what we really want to focus on are the potentially matched transactions and the unmatched transactions. So we see there's a $530,000 invoice that's not been paid, and we have here this match that says 1540 and 1540 in both worksheets that look as if they are similar, but we want to investigate that a little further. Additionally, we also have here a summary. So as part of the reconciliation, it went through and it categorized what has been found as through part of this process. So it says a total of 356 transactions were matched, one potentially matched, and explains why. And then goes a little further, and so it talks about the single transaction that it's found that's not been matched, which is this invoice here. Now, let's just say because in this example, we're looking at a customer invoice and a vendor invoice for comparison, but this reconciliation feature can be used across multiple types of reconciliations. So that can be anything from your general ledger to subledger, intercompany reconciliations, banking, fixed asset ledger, all types of reconciliations can be handled within this tool. So as part of that, in doing those reconciliations, you might want to keep the output of what's provided here and append it to your report in order to support let's say, an audit process. So I do have the option to click on include this summary in the report, and it takes what's here in the sidecar and automatically displays it below. And then you can do your standard export to PDF or print in order to keep this for your backup. Additionally, so looking at this 1540, which again, looks like it's a potentially matched transaction, we want to understand what's really happening behind the scenes. Are they the same or are they different? So if I click on troubleshoot a transaction, it then says to me, select the transaction. It did. And then it gives me more detail about what it's found. It says there's two potentially matched transactions here. Additionally, in addition to pointing out the details of it, between the two different worksheets, it also gives me a summary as to why it thinks they are similar. And what we find here is that whereas one had 1540 as a single transaction, the other one was made up of a combination of plus and minus transactions that came together to create ultimately the 1540. And then it summarizes those same three down here. So you can see that by combing through 358 transactions in a matter of seconds, the whole process of reconciliation was cut down from what would have taken an extended amount of time to just a matter of minutes. That's the reconciliation feature in Excel. And just to show you a bit more of what's to come, I'm going to talk to you a bit about another feature that we're working on that's not yet available in the public preview, but will be available at the time of GA. This is the variance analysis feature. So we start with a typical cash flow forecast. And what we're looking at here is data that's been pulled from the actuals at, let's say, a month end, quarter end, year end, and it's comparing actuals to forecasts. And we know typically when accounting teams go through this process, not only do they want to necessarily look at what the variance is where actual didn't meet forecast, but really spend their time in what's driving the variance itself. So not just the what has happened, but why it's happened. So we've introducing Copilot for Finance's now analyze variances feature. We're able to go through and get that insight very quickly. So if we start by clicking Analyze Variances, you see that it comes up and starts with identifying, starting with some self-information. So we indicate what we're looking for within this forecast analysis. So we choose forecast and cash flow forecast, the worksheet, and then we look at this table, again, forecast versus actuals. Then we go through and we define the criteria for the Copilot to identify the variances. So Copilot does suggest a certain way of looking at the variance. Here it says more than a 20% difference, but it also gives you a natural language input to describe exactly what you're looking for. It also allows you to select a pair of cells and specifically look at where there might be some variances if you've already identified it yourself. So we're going to go through and use the natural language input here. So I can type in February forecast varies from actuals more than 10%. But additionally, in addition to sort of identifying where that variance is, I also want to attach two supporting documents to help explain where these variances occur. And again, because this is a prototype that I'm walking through, I'm not going to show you the attachments today. I'll describe them and give you a bit more insight of them later. As we get closer to the general availability launch of this, we will demo that a little bit more for you in real time. But again, this is just using this prototype, and for the sake of timing, we're going to skip showing you the actual two attachments. But the power here is that it can take external documents, external items such as payment, a list of payments, or cash flow statements themselves, and in order to support this variance analysis. So we'll click on that. And as it goes through the variances, it then says it's found two. One here with looking at the incoming customer payments, and another looking at the other receipts. So as it goes through, based on the criteria that it's found, we will then click on Analyze. And as it's analyzing, it then comes back and says it's found the variance of $755,705 between these two amounts. And it shows that it represents an approximately 12% decrease. And using the available, the two items that I attached as supporting documents, it was able to find that it came from Washington State sales was probably the likely driver of that variance. You can see here below the two documents that were attached, cash sales forecast and cash flow forecast. So again, I was able to load up multiple documents, and it's not limited to two. We can load up to several documents to support the analysis. But by doing so, it was able to get much more down to the detail as to what's causing this variance. In addition to this, so now that we've uncovered what's driving these variances, I might want to append this information into the document so that if anyone else looks into this forecast, they can get a better understanding of what's driving it as well. So I have the ability to edit the comments, and append that in. So I can then look at what's here. I can actually update this with additional information if I want, or I can just go ahead and save it in and say save to the field. And what it did was it inserted that detail right as a comment into the cell where the variance is. And then I can just submit it along. Additionally, I can go ahead and analyze the next two lines as well, but I can also define criteria to identify what the variances are. So here I'm looking at these different cells to sort of look at the customer payments, and I want to understand the forecast versus actual here. So I highlight the two cells to see which two are what's driving them, and then I click Analyze Variances. And it comes along and says, it comes out saying the actual income missed the projection by approximately 9%. Again, giving you detail that explains what's happening. And because of the underlying data that was attached with the two additional supporting documents that I provided, it does indicate very directly that came from Fabricam's payment schedule with February outstanding balance of $530,000. Just in a few clicks, I was able to understand what's driving these misses on my forecast, and give the information and append it to the document and be able to provide it for the next set of team members that need to review this information. So after that, let's go into the roadmap and talk a bit further. So just to give you some insight as to where we are and where we're heading with Copilot Finance, as you saw, we just finished reviewing the variance analysis. And again, that was a prototype of what we have, what we're looking to release for the general, for GA, for general availability. But additionally, as mentioned earlier, so we have currently available the data reconciliation in Excel feature, which I demonstrated to you earlier. The collections that includes data virt support for notes and email summaries, which Russell demoed earlier as well. And then we will, as we're going through all of these, we will have additional features also coming through, expanding the existing capabilities that are already there. So just to recap though, as of right now, there are two features fully available: the reconciliation in Excel and the collections experience through Outlook. Going forward into GA, we will be adding additional capabilities with native M365 Copilot integration. So if you're familiar with how Copilot exists in M365, we'll be bridging and creating a bit more similar experience between the two, which will be good for the end user. We'll also be adding more generic connector support for customer communications. So that will mean that more end users can take up the offering, connecting the customer communications and Outlook into their ERP. We'll be adding Business Central and SAP connector support. And then we'll be looking at the enhancements to our additional public preview cases. So the three features that are already there are additional capabilities that we'll be adding to each of those features. And so that's really where our focus is for right now as of GA. Okay, so with that said, I'm going to hand over to James and allow him to walk you through the architecture.
Thanks, Wayne. I'll jump in on the architecture side of things. Hello, everyone. My name's James. I'm working in engineering on Copilot for Finance. So we've seen that overview of the experiences from a user's perspective. I'll talk a little bit about the high-level architecture behind these experiences. We'll use this diagram that's on the screen now to help guide that conversation, going through it from left to right. So starting on the left, we have the admin layer. This is where administrators will handle installing and managing the app for users and their tenant from Admin Center. There are also experiences there for making sure licenses are assigned and making the app available to end users to install that way. Moving beyond that into the client layer, this is where we get into what users are actually going to see when they open the add-ins. So our client experiences surfaced in the add-ins are hosted in a CDN, or a content delivery network, which is hosted in Azure. Those client experiences are served to customers in a fully geo-localized experience in a set of supported languages. Today in public preview, we're available in English, but that will change as we get to GA. Within that client surface, we have several different actual experiences that are exposed to users. On the Excel side, that includes some interfaces and extensions for extracting and analyzing data, generating AI-powered insights and outputs, and performing actions in the Excel workbook directly. In Outlook, we similarly expose a side panel or sidecar experience. This provides the connectivity that you saw into reading and writing emails within Outlook, as well as surfacing useful data from the user's backend data stores and showing AI-based insights. All of these experiences that are surfaced in the client layer are powered by the logic in our service layer. So there we have microservices hosted in the BAP core services layer. This is an internal business applications infrastructure within Microsoft that hosts microservices in a compliant way. This is where we handle authentication, making sure that users only get access to data that they should have access to. We'll focus on the right side of this service layer box, where we have these three integration layer boxes, and go through those one by one. So starting with that ERP data integration layer, this is where we have abstractions in place to connect to any data source, whether that's SAP, Dynamics, Finance and Operations, Business Central, or a custom source that the customer would like to bring. This data will be surfaced in the client experiences and used to enhance the AI insights provided to users. You'll also notice there's some limited storage of Copilot for Finance specific data in Power Platform that goes along in the data and AI layer on the right side. All of the data that we have here is governed by the security controls in place at the data source level. All read, create, update actions we perform are done in the context of the user who is signed in. So if that user doesn't have access to some data or doesn't have access to perform an action, there's no possibility of it being exposed to them. Next up, we have the Microsoft Graph integration layer. This is where we have access to data on emails, meetings, and some integration with the M365 Copilot that exists in Outlook and Excel. And then finally, we can talk about the AI integration layer. This is where we make calls into our AI services. We do that by going through a service called CAPI that you may be familiar with. Essentially, this is a business applications specific wrapper on top of Azure OpenAI. It gives compliant access with additional controls in place, specifically geared towards business applications, and it's a standard across Dynamics. Connecting to our AI services via CAPI ensures that we go through the proper compliance, security, and privacy checks before we get any access to these AI services. We do not make direct calls to OpenAI. Through these calls to the AI services, there's also no retention of user data, no storage of the user data or prompts, and no training of any models based on the prompts or the data that's being passed in. The data is only used for runtime processing to generate the insights and the actions that are going to be surfaced for end users in Outlook and Excel, and then is discarded by Microsoft after that. So overall, that covers the architecture in Copilot for Finance. Please post any follow-up questions in the Q&A, and we can respond to those in time. I'll then turn it over to Hytham to wrap up with the remaining slides.
Thank you, James. So let's just quickly navigate and talk about requirements and limitations in the current public preview program. So first, this preview is completely free from a licensing perspective. You don't need anything except the M365 E3 or E5 license. As soon as you have that, you can simply use the Outlook scenarios and the Excel scenarios. This does not include Copilot for M365, and the GA pricing is not disclosed yet. And once we are closer to GA, this will be publicly announced. Copilot for Finance require Office for the web or desktop 2016 or above. Currently, the public preview only supports English interface from a user interface perspective and from a conversational AI. In some scenarios, we have seen that when you receive an email, for example, in a non-English language, still Copilot can understand and summarize the email, but the summarization will be in English. And as soon as we move to GA and GA plus, additional language will be added. And as well, this goes as well with the US regional settings currently supported for the public preview. From a deployment perspective, as you all see in the demos, actually, there is nothing that you will deploy. In a matter of fact, it's just the availability of some other services. In some scenarios also, when customers are trying to sign up, we have seen that there is some limitations due to specific settings on a tenant perspective. And if that's the case, the admin should allow the viral adoptions permissions on this particular tenant. Diving a little bit deeper in the Excel and Outlook scenarios. Currently, as the Excel does not need to connect to the ERP, you can simply bring any data. So if you have an Excel, have a license, install the add-in and go try the Excel. One of the questions I am seeing also is about how to get data from FNO. From a very high level scenario I can think of, you can use the export to Excel functionalities. You will have your data in this Excel sheet. Simply run the Copilot on the existing data. All you need to do is this data is in a table format, so Copilot can run the reconciliations scenarios. If I would look to the Outlook, there is a connection here currently in the public preview to Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations. And due to that, there is a requirement that you need to have a Power Platform integration link between a Dataverse environment and an FNO environment. In other words, if you have any Microsoft managed tier 2 environment, any cloud-hosted environments, which is DevBox or CHE as known in other terms, you can simply from LCS start the deployment and you will get an out-of-the-box environment, FNO and linked Dataverse environment. You can use this for your testing purposes, or you can link it to an existing environment that you have. Once you have the link, your users have access to both environments. You will be able to see the environment in the drop-down list in the Outlook scenarios. There is also lots of questions related to securities and permissions. So Copilot leverage actually FNO framework from a security perspective. So whatever user has access from a role, duties, privileges perspective, this will get honored in the Copilot. And in this particular link, there is additional details on what exactly the roles required for the full Copilot experience. So just to sum up from a key takeaways perspective, definitely sign up, try it. It is currently free. We are sharing a couple of links that you can start your journey with the Copilot from there. Additionally, you would want to join the Yammer group and the tech community. If you have any feedback for us, it's a direct connection with the product team and the product crew for the Copilot, and sharing additional ideas and also announcements. We would love to hear your feedback about the reconciliations, collections. If there is any improvements, any suggestions. Also, the Yammer group would be a forum for that. And then stay tuned for the various analysis is coming soon in one of the Excel scenarios. These are some resources and links that will be available also when we have to upload the materials for you to download. This is the Yammer group links, community hub links, our public documentations, how to sign up, and then within the Microsoft Learn, there will be lots of resources related to non-limitations workarounds, how to use the products in multiple installation scenarios. And again, if you want to reach out directly, please use the Yammer group. This would be the best forum for engagement with the owning team. Right. So now to the Q&A. I'll be reading some of the questions. And if you have any additional questions, please feel free to post them in the Q&A. Questions related to availability. So is public preview available in Australia region?
In public preview, yes, you could access this in Australia. Yes, we have customers who are using it in preview today in Australia.
As its data AI layer provides capability to train models, I assume that we could make predictions such as revenue forecasting, sales forecasting. Is my understanding correct? If so, how we can prompt from Copilot add in any documentations?
I think that just to clarify, from that diagram, we do not imply that any training is done. We consume the models. We do not train any of the models, right? So right now we use a version of GPT-4 that is called from CAPI, but we do not support any training, nor do we provide any training data. With respect to revenue forecasting, in long-term roadmap, there is some notion of looking at forecasting capabilities, but that would be as a standalone feature within the application.
If we are pulling data from the 365 FNO via linked Power Platform environment, what level of access is needed for user in PPAC for the scenarios to work?
Okay, Haitham, you can address the privilege and Dataverse side, but with respect to what we're pulling, we actually don't today. We're only we're not reading anything from Dataverse today. When we update our capabilities in about 2 to 3 weeks, we'll be providing support for non-financial communications in that Outlook scenario. So you will be able to save emails, notes, email summaries to Dataverse and associate them with a customer. So from that perspective, you're reading from one custom entity that we've defined that will give you access to get the notes and email summaries related to a specific customer, and they'll show up on that customer navigation as the last card. So that's the only privilege that will be needed to read and write those to that custom entity and its related records.
Thanks, Russell. If I would think, yep, go ahead.
Yeah, so one other thing is, in order for, I think there was another question early on with customer concern, they did not get access. It could be because their user is not a member of is not on the org that's associated with the FNO instance. And we rely upon the user being in that Dataverse instance for the environment discovery. So if anyone has a D365 Finance instance and is unable to get past the first step when selecting an environment, just reach out to me and we'll just talk through that permission. But we do have that documented in our help docs in terms of that prerequisite. But happy to help if anyone's blocked.
Thanks, Russell. And just in some scenarios, if you have dual write running between both environments, you would need read privileges on some of the entities. And I would assume that if you already have a live dual write, that you should be able to have these permissions. So it shouldn't be additional permission required. Are these extendable using Copilot Studio? If yes, there is guardrails, limitation in any published documentations yet?
At GA, we will not be extensible by Copilot Studio, but customers can use Copilot Studio with our SKU. We do plan all Copilots essentially will have some Maker Story baked in with Copilot Studio. So we're just starting that engineering process now. So that's coming in the future, but at launch, we will not have it. Our extensibility will be somewhat separate from Copilot Studio.
Thank you, Russell. Is the public preview available in France region?
It's not currently available in France. It will be for GA, but it's not currently available right now in France.
Another question is, will it follow similar pricing model like C4 Copilot for sales and service, I would assume?
We will be along those lines, but we have not formally communicated any pricing yet.
Okay, so I think since there is no additional question,